Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. How are you doing on this wonderful Wednesday? I hope that you're having a good time. I am standing in the middle of my thing here that says think different. Today, we're going to be talking about this topic, brothers and sisters. We're talking about do it. Pursue greatness, okay? When I say pursue greatness, I am reflecting on a lot of the things that I've seen. People who I've held in high esteem in terms of being doers. And I want everybody to understand that, you know, the level of greatness that we're talking about is very individual. It could be secular, it could be in entertainment, it could be in finance, it could be spirituality. It can be the mere fact that you've challenged yourself to be something more of value, more relevant than you are right now. You know, there's level of greatness. Unfortunately, we live in a place where there's always competition. And when you deal with competition, everyone wants to judge what your level of greatness is. And half the time, three-quarters of the time, they're not even trying to judge it against what they do, but what's been established in the past or what people are trying to do in the future. And we don't really understand those narratives. You know, what drove people to do certain things, what the conditions were. So I'm going to give you the baseline of why I thought this was really, really important. Because we're in a world right now, or let's say an environment right now whereby people mimic what they think is greatness. Let me say it again. People mimic what they think is greatness. And what you have is a lot of people who are just mimicking. They don't really understand the true steps, the sacrifices, the wins, the losses, and things like that. They are what's the word? They are accidental voyeurs to other people's greatness. They see that person do one thing, and half the time they don't want to be great. I think imitation is the highest form of flattery. If you borrow from somebody who is a great person, but you know you can't be that great person, you're not trying to look for greatness in yourself, and you're willing to do things to get you to a level that's mediocre, but it allows you to be functional, then you kind of cheat the game. You're cheating the game. I was watching a thing on Netflix called Who Are We? And it's hosted by a guy named Jeffrey Robinson. He's a Harvard-trained lawyer. He's actually a Marquette University alum from Memphis, Tennessee. And they put a clip up in this thing. It's about a chronicle of racism in the United States. And they put this clip up of Martin Luther King. And I can't remember if I had seen this clip before or not. I mean, it just resonated with me in a certain way. This is where we talk about greatness. Greatness is the ability, as we said the last couple of shows, is that you can reverse engineer and realize and assess a situation where you were for what it really was. Maybe it's less the emotion. Maybe it's less the finance. Maybe it's just less the people, less commentary, less stress, anxiety. I don't know what it is. But King was talking about the civil rights movement. This is why it's so much and so important to talk about, of course, think different. King is talking about the civil rights movement, and he says, you know, that they gained some victories over that 12-year period, he was talking about. He said, but they were bargain victories. He said they were bargain victories. And I'm like, what is this man talking about? And he said, well, you know, they're bargain price victories, meaning that the things that they had achieved didn't have as much gravitas. So wait, because America, it didn't cost America anything. It didn't cost America anything. We want to be able to sit at the lunch table. That's fine. Somebody realized Negroes got money too. Let them eat. We want to be recognized as this, cool. But it didn't cost them anything. The Montgomery bus boycott at some point in time doesn't matter because inviting black people on to sit on the bus, but they had a list of all the things that you couldn't do, even though you're allowed to sit on the bus, and you didn't have to sit in the back. If your oppressor is attacking you, pray for you, and these are things that were in this documentary. But the greatness of King is to say that in the midst of all this euphoria about things that we have achieved, he goes, dig it, brothers and sisters. They're bargain price. He doesn't say they're meaningless or they don't have value. He goes, but it doesn't mean as much because it didn't cost America anything. Greatness costs you something. So look, we're going to be right back. We're going to go ahead and get the show started. I appreciate you guys jumping on. Big shout out to Miss Eleanor, gave me a call today. My big sister gave me a call, and shout out to my mom. Great conversation earlier. And we're going to get started on the show. But we're here on the Shout Out Show with Preacher Moss. Take care, and don't you move. All right, we're back. You know who I am. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS Show. But who are you? Who are the people who make the show go around? We're going to be introducing our folks right now. First off, I'm going to give a shout out to Mary Moss, better known as Mama San. How you doing? She says, hello, SOS family. Shout out also to the people that were on the Instagram Live with me, the IG Live, just kind of kicking around. I was listening to some jazz, and I had a little Siri thing, and Siri wouldn't shut off. Maybe it was John Coltrane playing. I don't know, but I thought it was a pretty good. It was a really good opportunity to actually enjoy some jazz before the show and kind of give people a little peek of what I do before the show as I get myself ready. All right. Shout out to Mama Son and my sister Ree. What's going on, Ree? I don't know if you're around the corner, around the world. Ree travels a lot, brothers and sisters, but always in our hearts. Hope that you're feeling well. The house has healed as it would be, and everybody's backing up to their full capabilities and capacities. Thank you so much for joining us on the Shout Out Show. Give a shout out to my main man, Altaf Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My good friend, Mr. 6 o'clock, is straight down, the Canadian envoy to the show. I gave him a different title because he's been ambassador for about 2 years. So I'm making him the Canadian envoy to the show. How are you doing, dear brother? We appreciate you coming on the platform. Hope that you're doing well. Please give our heartiest blessings and salutations to our Muslim family in Toronto. All right. And we got my brother here. He said he is in the same room with his wife. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's right. So she can keep an eye on you, Brother Bilal. Sometimes I'm worried about you, sir. I'm messing with you. And we also want to give a shout out to his queen, Sonia Salahuddin Dalton, who is also a faithful member of the show. So, not to get too far out or start too far out, brothers and sisters, but I love the whole idea of pursuing genius. Let me tell you why. Pursuing genius is a little bit of an extension of understanding that the world as you see it, could have a different type of continuum. That the world as you see it has a different type of meaning. And when we pursue greatness, whatever it's in, whether it's music, writing, arts, business, religion, relationships, what you are looking at, brothers and sisters, is something that is antithetical to society in and of itself. That the whole idea of letting sleeping dogs lie is not something that we hold in our hearts in terms of being valuable, in terms of expressing ourselves and expanding our hopes and dreams. Like nobody wants to be a mediocre parent. What do we want to be? We want to be great parents. Nobody wants to be a mediocre comedian. Why? Because nobody's going to come see a mediocre comedian. Nobody's going to see a mediocre jazz musician or hire a mediocre jazz musician. The competition, if you will, begins of a spiritual nature. It begins with the fact that you begin to understand, first and foremost, that the excellence is inside of you. How you bring it out is how you develop your pathway for genius. 9 times out of 10, the environment around you does not necessarily pursue greatness. Government does not want individual greatness, they want conformity. Credit card companies, banks, politicians, they want a level that you stay at so they can stay at their level. Like if you have a level here and a level here, and you somehow raise your level, guess what happens? You disrupt the apple cart. You bring disruption to those things. And alhamdulillah, I like bringing disruptions. I like to call myself my own BS on my travel, on my journey to be great. I've enjoyed these journeys. Many of you have. Many of you have. Because we grow up in these pockets. And it's a very, very weird thing. I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but we will hang around people who don't see greatness in themselves and will tell you time and time and time again that there's no greatness in you. We have a whole schematic of culture whereby all of a sudden it was dumb to go to school. I remember this when I was in college, in high school. You going to college? Yeah. Why you going to college? That's for nerds. No, that's for people who want to do better in their life. Now, I'm not saying anybody has to go to college, got to get a degree. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me, this was a pathway for my greatness. You know, I had a friend of mine one time. He's very upset. Something happened. He called me up. I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, man, something happened. Somebody disrespected me. I said, okay, what happened? He said, man, and he told me with the case. I was like, all right. And he goes, man, do you know where I can get a gun? I said, I know where you could buy a gun. He said, no, I just need a gun right now. He goes, where can I get it? I said, at the prison, because that's basically where you're going to wind up getting an illegal gun. And he sat and laughed, and I sat and laughed. And he said, why did you say that? I said, listen, whatever happened emotionally, you're shortcutting a process that continually may make you a better person. That if you can work through this situation of this anger, anxiety, and emotion, and whatever things are going through your mind, these ruminations, I said, there's something to lead you to a better place that will allow you to look back and go, not making those decisions has put me in a very, very valuable proposition right now. We don't talk about greatness. We don't talk about greatness. We listen to a president with red hats and blazing across the front, make America great. And nobody said, who said you can make America great? And nobody questioned what makes America great for you. It was the X. Like all the slaves, they only had first names and the X was a mystery. The white people put that X there. Donald Trump put that X there. And people interjected themselves thinking I could be great following this protocol. And they cannot be great. Martin Luther King, I have to make sure I get this right. I will research. If I make a mistake, I'll come back and tell you tomorrow. Before he was assassinated, this is amazing. The speech he was going to give before he was assassinated, the day of he was assassinated, it was called Why America is Going to Hell. The speech was called Why is America Going to Hell? And I listened, I didn't, the speech never happened, but you can understand the ruminations of this man pursuing a level of greatness whereby it was inclusive of bringing everybody to the plate, bringing everybody across the finishing line. A very, very bold initiative to take the poor, to take the rich, to take the old, to take the young, to take people who had never ever seen themselves as valuable, change the table and go, you're not only valuable, but you have a pathway to be great. Despite the laws, despite all these amendments, despite the Constitution, these are not the machinations of people who want to be great. These are the machinations of people who want to be deniers of greatness. So I say, do it, pursue your greatness. Why? You're the only one who could do it. And if you put together out of a group of 10 people, 4 people that are trying to pursue their greatness, that multiplier will give you 400 people. It will. That 40% is some of the best 40% out there. And then not only that, it will inspire folks. Think about basketball. We talk about some of the greatest people of all times. You know how they look at the greatest people of all times in basketball? They look at their statistics, not just how many games you won or lost. They figure out how many points you score in a game. And then they have field goal percentage and free throw percentage and 3-point percentage. Can you think about this? To be great in a league, to be paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, out of 10 baskets, if you hit 4 of them or 5 of them, you are a superstar. 3-point baskets, if you hit 4 of them, you are a superstar. People will rain down massive amounts of money because that's what they consider greatness. If you flip it around and you say, hey, wait a minute, let me develop my own rubric for how I get from point A to point B in developing greatness, you'll understand that you will see, you will see the environment totally differently. You will see your opportunities totally differently. One of the things I know about greatness is while we have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of opportunities. Thus, one part of greatness is that you will learn to develop and design and frame your own opportunities. You know, one of my great teachers, the immortal, if you will, Dick Gregory. My mom told me he has a special coming on today called The Right to Defend, Right to Offend. And I looked at some of the people going to be on it. They were not Dick Gregory disciples. No way, no how. We got a bunch of comics who are going to come on and talk about Dick Gregory, but he would not want them to really speak about him because they didn't know him. This is just a popular thing to do. And I'm going to watch it because there's very few people my age and definitely not younger who could really, really resonate with what Dick Gregory was doing. Dick Gregory was a lesson in greatness because he found in his journeys different ways to be effective and different ways to be great. Where he started as a comedian is not where he ended up as a comedian. Do you hear what I'm saying? And it takes courage, it takes resilience, it takes persistence because part of greatness is admitting and expecting to be wrong numerous times, to be in error numerous times. And around those errors, you will sacrifice time. Sometimes you'll sacrifice reputation. You definitely sacrifice money. But if you have the stick-to-itness whereby something has inspired you to stay this path, you're going to be in a totally different space. And I can't say that you're going to wind up being rich. I can't say you're going to wind up being famous or anything like that. But in your space, you're going to command a certain type of gravitas where people understand that you're not sitting there in a sedimentary space. You are thinking, if you will. You are thinking. You are, in your mind, developing schematics of how you get from point A to point B. You know, some of our levels of greatness are not in music. Some of our levels of greatness are not in politics. They're not even in finance. Some of our levels of greatness or examples of greatness are us, our ancestors, our slave people who understood that the moment that freedom was this close, they were going to bust through that door and be free. Not for them, but for us to develop. And this is a very deep concept. This is a very deep concept. This is slaves modeling freedom. We've never had to wake up and figure out how to be free. Do you see what I'm saying? We never had to wake up and had to go through this process of rethinking what freedom means because somebody's going to take it from us. Yes, we talk about voting, we talk about redlining, we talk about all those things, but I'm talking about the actual act of physically keeping people from their freedom. And to think that way, no universities, no colleges, no support from religious institutions. These were people who thought it out and in a collective, I want to say collective genius, figured out the moment we get out of here, we're going to develop economy, we're going to develop finance, we're going to get land, we're going to frame out what our families look like, we're going to get the vote. This is mind-boggling. So as I sit here talking right now, I'm like, hey, man, we need to get back to that level of genius. And that level of genius starts with what? Starts with freedom. Be right back.
We just need help.
Imagine if there wasn't an olive branch. Muslim Family Services at your command. The people who help people have to say, we need your donations, don't delay. We all have struggles from time to time, but leaders dedicated is what you find. Before another person sheds a tear, support Olive Branch, you don't have to fear. Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Action you can see, compassion you can feel. Sing it with me. Ooh. Ooh. All right, so I just want to stay on this whole idea about pursuing your greatness. One of the biggest rewards for pursuing greatness is that you're going to learn in no uncertain terms what your capacity is, what your thresholds are. And then the whole space between capacity and thresholds, you're going to understand creatively what your value is. You know, as artists, a lot of times people believe that your value is going to be determined by your environment, your audience. And I used to believe that, but your value is determined by your own journey, because none of those people could put a true value on what you've been through. And it's impossible to understand your level of commitment, your level of drive and persistence. You can't do it. That it's a very individual thing. You know, that we have brothers and sisters, we've been fortunate to watch people work through what seem like, you know, a labyrinth of problems, impossible odds, but we see them get to a place, or at least we're excited with the fact that, you know what, they might do it. They might make it. I had a great conversation some years ago with the artist Yassine Bey, Mos Def, and I was telling him about my at the time I was telling him about my Muslim sitcom I wanted to do called Here Come the Muhammads. And we talked for about 3 hours at his hotel room, and he liked the idea of Here Come the Muhammads, and then we talked shop about what some of the barriers would be. Like, there was really nothing on TV about Black Muslims. It was more like we're going to have immigrant Muslims because, let's just be honest, in Hollywood, and this is no knock, the immigrant Muslim is a lot less threatening Muslim. Facts. History and historical connection is not there. It's not like 400 years of slavery as opposed to the 1960s when immigrant Muslims were allowed to come in. So, yeah, that history says that, hey, this is something totally different. But we said through all the trials and travails of trying to get this thing moving, and I'm talking to another artist. He's a fascinating guy. We both looked up and smiled and said, you know, for all the obstacles, he goes, what happened if we make it? We literally said, what happened with all this stuff? We might as well, we managing, if you will. We managed to get something on the air called Here Come the Muhammads, to give America a front row seat to Islam through the eyes of African American, and make it funny, but make it available to everybody. That was the threat. So it's not we hunker down and go, hey, I'm Arab, I'm Indian. It's like, no, I'm legitimately American, the one that's been around here saying that this justice has been denied and we got to talk about it. And it was that thing that allowed me to continue going, even though the show didn't happen, but I was able to put elements of the show into my act. And I was able to work through some of the kinks. And some of you guys think, hey, I'm doing the shout out show. Listen, you guys are doing me a favor, a huge favor with the shout out show. And what it is that you allow me, in no uncertain terms, to reach different levels and conversations that I may be having in the future. When we talk about Us Hub and ISNA and ICNA and Islamic Relief, you know, those are the people who represent us in some regards, but they don't. Those are the people we want to make sure when the level's perfect, when the opportunity's right, that when the greatness comes out, nobody can take claim for it, except for the people who are actively advocating for us to be great, who said, despite all the negative no's you hear, go for it. You know, a no is a very powerful thing. I say that African Americans, African American Muslims, particularly here in the United States, we are aficionados of no. If you tell us no, it means yes in some regards. Not that we're committing to the adverse, but you've challenged us. See, the greatest thing about pursuing greatness is you get a chance to reframe and reform challenges. That this doesn't work, I challenge myself to fix this so it does go straight. If it goes too far to the right, I challenge myself to keep this thing straight. And once it's straight, I'll keep building on top of it. People don't have these conversations enough anymore with our children and things like that. We allow our children to be indoctrinated in the school. So kids are talking about grades and things like that, and history that's been dead for quite a number of years, but nobody speaks to the kids' creativity. No one says in these years, these 12 years of school, what is it that we need to help you be great? Grades are superficial. What is it that we need to do to help you be great? And I think we need to start asking ourselves and our loved ones, the people in our intense circles of influence, we need to be able to talk to them about what is it do I need to do to help you be great? My mom years ago took me to the same comedy club that Dave Chappelle went to because she wanted me to see comedy, not me on a playground telling jokes, but this is what comedy looks like. That was the first time I saw Martin Lawrence as a comic, and I'm like, wow, he's struggling. We're the same age, but I'm like, he's struggling. I'm like, but I can do that. And this is not to be funny. To watch jazz musicians was, what do I need to do to be great? And I remember I couldn't be a jazz musician. I came to that reality that I wasn't going to be great in that position, but I could create something great out of that reality. And I remember a guy going, hey, man, don't you worry about it. You do you. He said, if you can't play music, he said, write music. You can't write music, he said, write jokes and write your music into the jokes. Groundbreaking, exceptionally groundbreaking, and I'm more than happy to have had a very long career, not doing what everybody else does, and I'm not the only one. A lot of us have made some very, very courageous decisions to not do what everyone else does because we knew we were going to be miserable. Even when we were successful in that lane, we knew that wasn't our best selves, and we looked at something different. Many of us walked away from jobs because they didn't do it. Some of us were in good paying jobs. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and things like that. I remember I left 2 decent paying jobs in DC to take a $13,000, $14,000, $16,000 pay cut to teach in Milwaukee because I thought that was where my genius lied. Connecting with these kids and giving them somebody who was accessible. I'm not saying I was a great teacher. I've never said that, but I was accessible and I listened. And more importantly, they taught me about greatness more than I could teach them. Because at a very young age, they were trying to work through a plethora of problems and obstacles, things that would normally get people down. These kids were dialed in and, may Allah protect them all wherever they are. Shout out to all my former students. So listen, I'm getting ready to get out of here because I don't want to be over my time, but I want everybody, when you're looking around the world and you start to get that feeling in your stomach, like I could have done that, do it. Do it. I'm encouraging everybody here to please, please, please pursue your greatness. Because if you don't, there's nothing to talk about. We all have opportunities and chances. And you know what? The world needs to see it. Because you may be inspiring the next great person. All right? That's our show for today. You guys take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Preacher Moss, we'll be back tomorrow.